you get to define how you want to be in the world, work in the world, make films in the world, right? That is actually your decision to make. The thing is, though, we don't live in a vacuum, and we're a part of a social landscape, and we're part of an industry, and we're part of a filmmaking culture, right? So, and it's all changing. So, you know, I would have said early in my career, I would have said, I want to ask permission of everybody that I film. And if I have a super meaningful relationship with someone, I want to continue it and honor it. Turns out, if I get hired to go in a film, I go to a place, I might meet 30 people like I did. I went to Darfur, I met 30 people who had had all family members killed. I spoke with each of them for a couple of hours, had this really intense experience with them. We left and went to another city. I will never see any of those people again. I don't even know their names, right? And I am working for hire for the director who set that up, and then we left. Now, I can say, oh, I never want to do that again. But in fact, we filmed some incredible testimonies. It made it into the film. So over the course of my career, I realized I was not in control of anything other than what do I do in this moment? And can I be honorable and treat people the way I want to in this moment? Sometimes, you know, I remember during that film, the director was like, I want a tracking shot by this whole set of people who'd like walk through the desert, they'd lost their homes and whatever. And I did it, and afterwards I was like, don't ever make me do a shot like that again. I was repeating this completely objectifying image of poor African people trapped in the middle of the desert, tracking by them, all completely anonymous. That's a racist and dangerous image in the world. And it's harmful in the doing of it. I'm just walking by you like I don't care about you. I'm just using you for this thing I'm going to take away. And sometimes you realize you're doing that in the middle of doing it, because you see people's faces. So I'll give you an example. We were in Rwanda after the genocide, and we were making a film about how women were doing work that men used to do because so many men had been killed. And we were driving from one place to the other place, and the light was beautiful. It was sunset, and we saw all these women working in a sugarcane field. And I was like, stop the car, right? And I could have gotten it from the side of the road, but they were really small in the field, and I knew the light was about to end. So we went into the place, and the director got out of the car and ran and talked to the owner, and he was like, no problem. And I ran out into the field, and I put my camera down, and the light was going, so I started filming. And all these women just were like, started sucking their teeth at me and turning their backs. Because here they were, they've been working for 10 hours, it was the end of the day, in a sugarcane field, working. It turns out they were working for $1 a day. They were hot, they were tired, and here comes a big white lady with a camera who doesn't speak to them, who comes and puts her camera down and starts filming them. And they were all like, fuck you, right? But they had to keep working, so what do? They just all and turned around. And I was like, oh my goodness, what have I done, right? But I was doing it because I was like, I gotta get the shot. The light is fading. We're making a film about women. We're making a film for something that's gonna be good. But in their experience of me, I was making all kinds of assumptions about them, and they were like, fuck you. And I respect that, right? I stopped filming the shot, and I was like, I went over and I spoke to them, and I said, I am so sorry. Here's who we are. This is what we're doing, da, da, da. And the light was gone. I did not get the shot, right? So that's one level of it. Let me give you more complex. So that's like, and for me, I was angry with myself. I had been filming for too many years to do something stupid like that. Because those are my ethics, right? It's not worth it to me, that beautiful shot of that, if they are going to feel objectified, used, like one more foreign person coming and making an image of them. And I think about that because of the history of images in the world. Some people who don't have power have had images made of them that do harm to them, and they have no control over it. So we are a part of that. We are a part of the construction of images that are often really racist images, right? We are part of the construction of images that are often really discriminating or sexist images, because that's been a part of the power structures that exist. And when we try to replicate certain images, we're just still doing it, right? So here's the other story. Still in Rwanda, we're filming, we're driving, and we hear screaming. And we sort of look out across the valley, and you can see a group of people and a stretcher, people carrying someone on a stretcher. So I turn to the director and I say, are we going to help them? Now, remember, we're here to make a movie. We have a short amount of time that we're in the place. A lot of money has been spent to bring us here. The filmmaker has to get stuff in a certain amount of time. The producer is putting pressure, right? We are not ambulance drivers. We are not doctors. We are in a place where there is no like operative infrastructure, right? If we are stopping every minute to help people, we will never make a movie. But we hear a person screaming on a stretcher across the way, and it's a big valley, and there's only us, and we're the only car, and people are walking. So I say, are we going to help them? And the director says, we're going to film them, and then we're going to help them. So now I can make a decision as a human. I could say, like, no way. I'm not going to do that. Let's just help them. We don't have time to film them. I think, okay, in this like split second of a moment, I think, okay, how can I do this? And I think, okay, I know what we're going to do. Because the camera's in the back of the car, packed, doesn't have a battery in it, doesn't have a card in it, because we're traveling from one place to another. I know how long it's going to take me to get the camera out and whatever. So what do? I say, okay, we're going to drive past them and drive up to the top of that hill. Because here's what happens. They say, okay, so the director trusts me. We drive past these people, get to the top of the hill. I get out. I get the camera out. I turn. I have this incredible wide shot where you see the long road they've been walking on. You can hear the screaming coming from a distance, right? They're walking up towards the camera, so it becomes a close-up shot, right? And you see that it's a woman in labor on the stretcher, and they put the stretcher down. And we talk to them, we take the woman, we put her in the car, we drive to the hospital. Okay, so I would say, and you would say by the look in your eyes, that's a really morally questionable thing to do, right? We're in Rwanda. The genocide happened and the UN did nothing. We are driving in a white truck that looks like a UN truck. We're a bunch of white people. They turns out they've been carrying her for 7 hours. So we drove past them. So all of those people who have lived through the genocide and already lived through seeing people from the outside who are there in white vehicles drive past them as their families get killed, experience that again, right? That is actually what it felt like to be a white person in Rwanda post-genocide when the only cars for rent were white trucks. You're implicated in that. You actually are a part of that historical moment, whether you were in the UN or you were there or not, because you are the visual symbol of that, right? So, and how do you manage that? So I would say the worst thing that we could have done, drive by them, get the shot, drive away. That would have been worse than what we did, right? What I experienced when I got out of the car was looking at the looks on their faces, which were just like, not dissimilar from the women in the sugarcane field. What are you doing? Who are you? I hate you. What's going on? You know, like, I'm seeing all these things. And then in the moments when we were loading the women into the car, I was apologizing to everybody. And one guy said, oh, yeah, no, I'm a camera person. I know what you were doing. One guy said, like, oh, we were so happy. Like, once you stopped, we were so relieved. The other guy was just like, I can't believe you did that to us, right? I objectified them in the moment, and then I talked to them as humans. And I apologized to them. Does that undo the damage that they felt in the moment? No, not necessarily. And I, like, the alternative to stop and ask permission for them, riddle me that one. There's no way that you could stop and ask them for permission when they've got stretcher. They would have put the woman down and put her in the car. There's no way you could get that shot. So I was answering to the needs of the director who I was hired by, who I'm there for, right? Like, we're there to make a movie. So guess what? Was the shot in the movie? No. Right? Now, I'm the one choosing to work on a film about maternal mortality. That means I may film a mother dying, right? Like, that's in the choice to work on a film like that. So I'm torn already between the idea of, I really care that too many women are dying in childbirth in the world. I believe maybe if a film gets made about it, that might change. It might change people's awareness, right? And there was a big period of time in the history of documentary filmmaking sort of that emerged called impact filmmaking, where people believed, I can see a problem, I can make a film, it's going to solve the problem. Turns out it doesn't quite work like that. And I've worked on films where, like, you film something and something really dramatic happens and some change happens, and right? So what do we do in the world? And these are all these questions we have. So I went into that situation knowing, like, oof. And when we walked into the maternity ward, there was like a grid, and you see it in the original film, where they say how many mothers died that week and how many babies died that week. And you're like, oh, that's a lot, right? And we're going to be here for 3 weeks, right? And so, you know, you have these incredible moments where they have this amazing thing called an anti-shock garment, which is basically like a body tourniquet. It's like a wetsuit that they put on mothers who are bleeding out, and they, you know, sort of put them on. So we are filming with this wonderful nurse, and she's like, quick, 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 come with us, quick, quick, quick. And they're pulling this woman out of a taxi cab. She's gray. She's just gray. And I'm like, I'm filming a dead woman being pulled out of this car, right? And she's saying, no, 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 no. And we're running with this woman, completely limp, completely gray. And they go and they put this suit on her, and they start transfusing with her with blood. And little by little, I'm seeing the color come back to her face. And it's like I've filmed Lazarus coming back from the dead, right? And you could have no greater visual story of how this anti-shock garment can bring a woman back to life. It's very cheap and inexpensive. It's really dramatic, amazing footage, and the company that makes the anti-shock garment has used it to raise money to get more of these anti-shock garments in places, right? So I can say like, wow, I did good in the world. There are more anti-shock garments out in the world. But at the same moment that that husband was running in carrying his wife who's dying, there's a person running back filming, right? So both of those things are true. So, I mean, this was just like ongoing dilemma all the time in that hospital, which is why, like, in many ways, it's the core of the movie for me, right? Because I'm so ethically torn about what that means and what that is. So it's easy, I think, to be in the place where we say, like, I know morally what to do. And I will guarantee you, if you make documentary films, you will make decisions that are morally compromised. And you will not do that because you're a bad person. You will do that because the world is a very complicated place. And to be making movies in this world is completely ethically complicated. If you feel so uncomfortable with being a white person or a Chinese person going to another country and making a film, then maybe make films at home. Maybe make films only with people who look like you. Maybe only make films with people who have money. Maybe, right, you can make these decisions. This is where I'm saying, like, we control our choices in some ways, right? And I do think certain things are structural problems. It's a structural problem that white American people keep going to African countries and making films about poverty. You should have more African people in your crew. It's a structural problem that rich people always make films about poor people, right? You can integrate crews in different ways. You can be training a person who's never had a chance to work with a camera to be your assistant, right? These are structural problems of inequality that you inhabit the space. You're a part of it. Does that mean that you do not engage at all? That is a choice that you're making, right? And, you know, I mean, Nancy and I have been, we've been working in this world for 30 years, right? And there are lots of ways in which we have been both powerful and powerless within it. And it shifts all the time, right? And you can think you've made a really great decision of like, oh, I'm only going to take my all-Chinese crew into this all-Chinese space. And then it turns out you can't make the movie because, like, for example, we went to Morocco and all the Moroccan journalists who we worked with, like, it couldn't be known by the king that they were working on the project. So they were like, please follow this story. We're not going with you. Go as outsiders into this place. Tell this story we are not allowed to tell. Get it out into the world, right? So it's moving in all kinds of directions. There's not a simple answer to this. But I think question, if you're working only with people who look like you, if you're working with an all-male crew or an all-female crew, or you're working with all people from the same economic class or all the same political perspective, question all of those things and make choices about those things.